Good evening. Welcome, 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 welcome. Welcome to the 20-minute fashion distraction. I'm Jackie Jenkins. You know what we do every Wednesday night? We talk total fashion. And tonight is no different. Actually, it is a little different. This is actually the 1 year anniversary of the 20-minute fashion distraction. So yes, it is a totally very different and so excited. I have my guest here with me. We're going to talk a little bit about fashion. We're going to talk a little bit about this past year. And more importantly, we're just going to really celebrate you guys for hanging in there with me for the year. So hold on. I'm going to bring on my guest. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello, Jackie. Congratulations. Happy
Thank you.
1 year.
Thank you. I know, right? Thank you.
It's 365 days.
365 days. I know, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. 365 days, 48 shows, too many outfit changes, amazing guests like you, amazing individuals in the audience like Nicole, Van, and Jocelyn. And I thank you guys for coming back. And so we're going to do something a little different because it is the birthday anniversary show. And actually, Jonathan, who has been on the show before, is going to interview me. But before Jonathan gets to interview me, thank you, Jan, and hugs of love. And my mom is here too. Thank you. Thank you. Before Jonathan interviews me, I want to say a few words about Jonathan and actually have a picture to share. Yeah, I know. Don't look at me like that. So Mr. Jonathan Bodrick, who has been on the show before, and I hope you guys remember, and actually has just really become a dear friend of mine. And we will talk a little bit more about that. But Jonathan is celebrity stylist extraordinaire, TV personality from Born to Style. And I have the honor of thanking probably my first friend, Richard Pelzer, who was my next door neighbor in Philadelphia, for introducing us. But I don't know if Jonathan knows how we actually met. I was kind of stalking him. So I will, so Jonathan spoke on this panel in Harlem, and now we're looking at 2 years ago.
Right.
And the panel was supposed to be about fashion. And one of the things about Jonathan that I really love, it's not about fashion. It's not about the clothes. It's all about you.
Right.
And so that was just a really wonderful discussion. And, you know, in New York, everybody's all kind of like acting like they don't want to, you know, be all caught up in the whole celebrity thing. And so when I met Jonathan, Ricky introduced us, and I was trying to act all calm, like, oh my gosh, I'm not excited, but I was so excited. And we actually took a picture. And hey, Singleton, hi, Judith. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited because so many of my friends and folks that have been hanging with me for this past year and all throughout my fashion journey are here. So I am so grateful. But I want to share this picture of us together. I don't even know if you remember, but it has been dear to me.
Yes, I do, in front of the vault.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And
I remember that picture. I was people were pulling me from here to there, and you were like, I want a picture.
Yep.
Yes, I will never forget that picture.
And it was just a really wonderful way to meet you. So I thank you for being with me on my 1 year. And we're going to jump right into it. As I was quickly trying to say, and Tanya's here, and oh my goodness, my special's here. And Regine is here. Regine sent me a little drinky. So I'm very grateful for that. And Claudia's here. And this is actually, it's just wonderful to see everybody. And I'm so grateful. And Stephanie, who was like one of my early guests, and thank you. Okay, so the way tonight's show is going to go is I'm not interviewing, I'm actually being interviewed.
Yes.
And so I'm going to let Jonathan take it from here.
Yes, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm thinking like that took up too much time. We want to get into you.
Nope.
Congratulations on 365 days, 48 shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
48 shows. What I really wanted to ask you was, I want to know little Jackie. Tell me about that little girl that was into fashion. Like, was she the type that followed the crowd, or that you were different and you set the trends? Like, who was that little Jackie and that you thought you could get into fashion?
Wow. Okay. All right. So little Jackie was actually little Jackie that needed braces. Little Jackie from Philadelphia, little Jackie that was a middle child. Oh my goodness. So my older sister, I'm just gonna put it out there. When we were growing up, I was a middle child, and my older sister was always the one that was fabulous, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, she's so hot, this and that." And so she's on here now, and so I was just kind of like this quiet. I was very much a bookworm, but I always loved fashion because my mom actually she was a sewer. So we grew up with patterns in the house. She had tons of Vogue magazines. She used to make all of our clothes. And I played with paper dolls a lot. And I was always like thinking about taking outfits and how they could change your mood. And I just held on to that. And actually that kind of got me to my first fashion gig. And I always say my first styling gig was my paper dolls. But actually in high school, I was a model for Abraham and Strauss in Philadelphia. A&S. I mean, A&S. Yep. And I will never forget, I showed up, and thank you for my mom. Actually, I went to Catholic school, and I showed up in my Catholic uniform. My mom was like, "Yeah, wear your Catholic uniform," and blah, blah, blah. So I wore the uniform, and, I was short. I did not look fashionable, but I talked about how much I love fashion, and I got the position.
Wow.
And I was a teen model. And then the other thing that I did during my Christmas breaks, I actually sold fashion fair as a counter girl. And so
Fashion fair, the makeup.
Fashion fair, the makeup.
Yes.
Fashion fair, the makeup. So I did fashion fair, and I went to school in Atlanta. And in Atlanta, I actually worked at a designer shoe house. And so all throughout college, I just stayed in it with fashion. But then when I was about to graduate from college, it just, no one was really doing fashion at that degree. It was just kind of something that people saw as a hobby. And so when I graduated from school, I got two offers. I got an offer to go to banking, and I got an offer actually at Strawbridges and Clothiers. I'll date myself again. And I just didn't understand what following a passion meant at that time. So I actually went the banking route. So I spent 20 years in banking and finance. And then I realized I needed to turn around and do the thing I love. And so here I am today.
So in that banking and finance, when did you still have that creative? I know, because there's always still in you of that. So how was that fulfilled during those times?
So a few ways. One, I never wore just a blue suit and that was it. I always wore like scarves or just something different to make my look be non-banky.
Right.
And then the other thing I guess like my third love would be finance. I really do have a passion for that, but I kind of mid-career realized that I could do finance and fashion together. So I actually got a corporate finance job with Ann Taylor here in New York. And that was my first like figuring out how you could put the two together.
Right.
And so while I was kind of like the numbers girl, I was the fashion girl. And I started just kind of like I was stalking you. I started stalking designers at Ann Taylor. And I started getting my projects transitioning from finance to more fashion based. Like some of the work that I did a costing. It sounds boring, but it was actually exciting for someone that loves fashion. It was a costing project on how much does it cost to actually air versus ship clothes from China.
Yes.
And that kind of got me to really understand and appreciate that fashion is a business and how to think about fashion in terms of moving production forward. And so I did that for quite a bit.
Oh, wow. See, I had no idea of all this experience because when I was thinking of when you had so genuinely asked me to interview you, people usually can get into fashion. It's like, I really don't know that much about her, of how this all revolved and came about. And then I was thinking, so 1 year, right? You have 1 year, and this is the pandemic. This is when everybody is still crazy and not knowing what's going on. How did you have the audacity to even come up with the fashion distraction and then thought that you can do it?
Wow.
Yes.
Woo. So that's a great question. So right before the pandemic, I stepped back. I guess that was 2019. It was just a really challenging year. There was a lot going on personally. There was a lot just going on mentally. And I kind of made a bucket list. And one of the things on my bucket list was to actually go to Paris Fashion Week. And I just threw it out there and I said, I wasn't even thinking about doing it for 2020, but something hit me and said, you need to take the trip. And I commend my one of my sorority sisters, whose birthday is actually today too. She said, you know what, if you figure out like how we can do it, we'll do it. And so I did it. And that was my last trip before COVID. So Paris Fashion Week was February, the last week in February. And all I can say, it was the breath, it was the most amount of fashion and the most amount of just being blown away that I've experienced pretty much ever in my life. And I say that from the standpoint, it was just the energy. And this actually was my first trip to Paris. And it was just the energy and excitement of all the things that I've read about, and then having the pleasure of seeing them there. And because COVID was starting, but we didn't really know what it was, a lot of the people that would normally go to the shows weren't at the shows. So I got front row seats at shows, and it just was really, it was crazy. And it was amazing. And I met amazing individuals from New York, from around the world. And I just kind of put together this whole thought in my head about, I want to go to the next level with fashion. So I come back and we're in quarantine. And so I was kind of sitting there and I said, well, I'm here in New York. And one of the things about New York is I guess you can recreate a fashion week experience, whatever, but you can't do that if you can't get out. Right. And I started thinking about, how do I keep this excitement and energy of fashion going? And I realized we've got Zoom, we've got Facebook, and that was it. And to be honest with you, I did not know that we were going to be able to go for a year. Like everybody, I think I thought the pandemic was going to be 2, 3, 4 weeks at best. Right. And little did I know that this would be a year later.
Right. But back to how did you think that you can do it and you should be able, to do it? Because I know a lot of times I have ideas, and then it takes a lot to be, it's a vulnerable place to put yourself on video. It's a vulnerable place to say that I'm in fashion and, you're talking to people, you're into, it's like, well, who does she think she is? Like when does that fear come up and you just push past it? Or it's just like, I'm just getting out there and doing it. Did the trip play a part in that feeling?
I think a few things did. I mean, one thing I learned through finance is you keep walking and talking. And, unless people ask a whole lot of questions, just keep it moving. And that spirit of, until someone says no, keep going. And so that was a part of it. But I think I was just on such a high coming back from Paris. And I even stepped back. I had started this community called Sophisticated Curations about 5 years ago. It's for women. It's online. And I had been blogging, and I had been wanting to figure out a way to have an ongoing conversation. And it was just like, this is a perfect time to do it. And it was it. And to be honest with you, I wasn't sure if it was going to work. And that's why I'm so grateful to see so many of you come back and listen every week. And guests like you come on the show.
Yes. Because I definitely remember when we were having a conversation and we were talking, and then the subject came up about your hair. Remember that?
Yeah. Yes.
And then you were saying, Jonathan, I'm thinking about going natural. Here you go again, with the ideas and just being bold and doing it. And I said, well, why don't you do it? And your response was?
I don't know if I can.
Yes.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know if I can. Actually, it was like a lot of hesitation. And you said, what's that all about?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you said that you've been using products in your hair since college.
Yeah, since like 4 weeks into my freshman year at college, I had a perm. Right. And I've always had a beautician. And so I went from having a perm to now, and I do need a better haircut, but I've been cutting my hair myself since the pandemic.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's yeah.
You have been just evolving and making it look so easy and effortless.
Oh.
Yes. That's one thing that I can say about you, because this whole fashion thing is not for the faint of heart, as you know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No,
who are some of your influences now, and who do you look up to right now? What's going on?
so and it's interesting, and I'm quickly glancing over at a note that my sister wrote and talking about going back to our family in fashion. And there's actually, and I don't know if my cousins, about 2 weeks ago, I posted my mother's godmother was one of the first black milliners in Philadelphia. And she was one of the first women to actually own a store on Broad Street.
And what's a milliner for those who might not know?
Oh, yeah,
a lot of people are like, a milliner.
Thank you. So she was a hat maker, but she was a hat maker to the stars. So she made hats for Grace Kelly, her family. Wow. She was part of the Nouveau Riche, and Mayree's is she's our family, right? And so as kids, we used to go there for Thanksgiving, and I remember playing with the hats, but also just seeing the regalness of it, and that was wonderful. And actually, Mayree's her hat are being they have an exhibition of it in the Smithsonian.
Wow.
So yeah, and so that's the foundation. And my mother's, I know I could go on and on. And tonight's show probably will run over a little bit later. I'm sorry, because this is but my mother's mother actually she was a dancer. Wow. And I think that and Nana Mae was such a strong influence in my life in terms of just being performance and someone that was really a strong woman. And and I will share that she grew up in a time when a light-skinned woman didn't necessarily learn how to read, so she did not know how to read, and her whole expectation was using.
You said a light-skinned woman?
A very fair-skinned woman,
right?
And not. There were two sisters. It was a dark-skinned sister and a fair-skinned sister, right. And she grew up in a time where colorism was very much an issue. So when it came time to go to school, her sister, who was my complexion, actually went to Tuskegee for hairdressing. And my grandmother didn't go to school because the expectation was, because she was of a fairer complexion, that she didn't need to learn and that she would be kept. And so wow. I think that story of not having opportunities, but seeing the opportunities that she made and then passed on to my mother, really just has stuck in my head. And I can't even remember how I got here in terms of perspective, but that definitely just has always been a reminder to me, the value of being a woman and not being caught up in what limitations people may think you have, yes. But just really believing in yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. You come from a long line of powerful women. So that's the reason why you have the confidence that you do. And the one thing is that people might feel that, with fear is going to be present. We feel it, but we go through anyway.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. We keep moving.
Yeah.
Well, but I think that's what touched me about COVID. And one of the things that to your question about what kept me going, I mean, there was a point in New York where we were losing 700 people a day.
Yeah.
And I found myself feeling blessed that neither myself nor my family or friends were not part of that count. Right. And it gave me a sense of responsibility to continue to pursue my dreams, because for whatever reason, I was fortunate enough to be move forward. So
Yes.
yeah.
So another important question. Tell me
Yeah.
about those earrings.
Oh
Oh my God, I love those. It's giving me Beyonce.
yes.
Remember when Beyonce, did you see the Grammys?
Uh-huh.
And you
Uh-huh.
seen her earrings?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I love those. What was
So
what's the
so
story?
the story is, and this was part inspired by you. When I cut my hair short, I wanted to think about different parts of me to accent,
Yes.
and I thought about earrings.
I love
And
it.
these are, oh my gosh, I think Rebecca Rabel. I can't
I
remember.
love those.
And yeah, and so it was just, yeah.
And then tell them about this story. Jackie calls me and about the Chanel earrings. Did you get them, or you were asking me should I get them? I don't remember what was it.
So that's when
Did you get them?
yes. And that's when I knew we were going to be fast friends, because so I called Jonathan up one day. This was like, I don't know, 2 weeks into the pandemic.
Right.
And I was like, I got to figure, well, no, it had to be longer because my hair at that point was very short. And I was like, I need a statement piece, this and that. And I was like, oh, there's some Chanel earrings. I really don't want to spend the money, but there's Chanel earrings.
Yes.
And I got them, and I totally love them.
And
I totally love them.
yes.
Yep, I totally love them. And they do. They just make such a big difference. They make such a big difference.
But you know what? When we invest in pieces like that, it goes, you know what I mean? When people go, like when you're no longer here, then you know the earrings will be passed down. And so, you know, so
Yeah.
I don't have any kids, so I'll be thinking like with a lot of my stuff, I'm like, who's gonna get this stuff?
Well, hopefully someone amazing, because you're right, because especially as someone like you that loves fashion, I'm quite sure each piece has a story.
Oh, yes. Tell me about the story in your dressing today, because you look very regal, very, very old Hollywood, right?
Yeah. Okay. So two inspirations on this. One, I saw the Zendaya and Mr. Washington Vanity Fair piece, and that was such old Hollywood that kind of got me spinning. And actually, this is a blouse that was gifted from my cousin Johnny, who's the daughter of the woman that was the milliner. And so I don't know. I just
Wow.
yeah.
So is that a vintage piece?
It's a vintage piece.
I love it.
Yeah. It's a vintage piece. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's a top. It's not a whole dress.
It's a top. It's just like a top cover up. Yeah. But it would be
it.
beautiful, you know, when we get to going out again. I would wear it with probably like a flared skirt or something. But it's, you know, it's kind of old Hollywood.
Yes, it looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself next year? Like in the next 365 days, what are your aspirations of taking? Where are you going to take this to?
Wow. So that's a great question. One thing that I do want to do more of this year is I'd like to have more international guests be part of the conversation. And where I'm going with that is I think so much of fashion is global in perspective. And I think bringing in more of a global discussion is a part of what I want to do, especially now that we're able to do it kind of remotely. And so that's a piece that I really hope to see happen. And I would love to hear more from you all who have been following the show for the past year in terms of topics that you'd love to see me cover. Yeah.
What do you think about the sustainability movement that's happening now?
I love that. So, and thank you for bringing that up. One of the areas that I'd love to do more, just even in my personal dressing, is remaking pieces, something that I know that you are very big in. And just trying to really be more sustainable in my wardrobe overall. You know, I think instead of buying more, I'd like to consider how do I invest more in terms of the pieces that I have, but also really looking at remaking items, you know, doing a lot more probably vintage shopping. and just really being conscious of what is in the environment. But then also, I want to continue to support emerging designers. That has been a fun part of what I've been able to do since we've been in. I've had more chance to kind of surf the internet and see what designers are out there and how they're actually doing things. A few of the designers I've had on has been Dina Burton, who's out on the West Coast. I've had a sister that has a boutique, actually is West Coast and on the East Coast, the Dollhouse Boutique. And so that has been really fun. And they do a sustainable practice at the Dollhouse Boutique.
Okay. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah. Oh my goodness. So it's 9:55.
Oh, is it?
Yes, I know. Time has flown. Time has flown. But what I do want to do is I wanted to have a piece of cake with a candle and make a wish.
Nice.
So I want to grab that. I'm going to take me off screen for a minute. Can you talk to the audience for a minute while I grab that?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Let me take me off. And I'm sorry, we're running over tonight.
I wish I can see who's on. You can see the people that
I can see the names. You can't see it as of yet. And Zena says she wants to shop my shop the closet. Okay, I'm gonna grab the cake. Hold on.
Okay. Hey, how are you? I was so honored when Jackie had called and asked me to interview her. It was so funny. So I get this call. And I'm like, hi, Jackie. And she's like, hi, Jonathan. Do you believe it's going to be a year? I'm like, oh my God, has it been that long? And she says, I need to ask you a favor. And I'm like, here we go. I hope she don't ask me for no money. And she says, no, I would be honored if you can interview me for my 1-year anniversary. And I said, of course I would, because as people know in what she's doing, she makes it look easy, but just the preparations and the questions alone takes time, energy, and she's very detailed, and I love it. I'm just giving you big hugs.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I have my piece of cake here. I don't know if you guys can see it. I'm trying to angle it.
Lift it up. Let's see.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice. Yep.
Yes.
So I think with every birthday celebration, you have to have cake. Before I make my wish, though, I do want to say some quick thank yous. And I'm terrible at remembering everything, so I'm not going to say people by name, but I have been sending out emails. So hopefully people have been getting the emails and texts where I just say thank you. But I just really want to say thank you all for hanging in there with me for a year. The fashion distraction has really been it's actually been a way for me to have hope in this really challenging time. And so I'm so grateful for you all for hanging in there with me. And I'm also really grateful that you all have been safe through this year. So that is a blessing to me. Yeah. So I say thank you. I'm going to make my wish. And I'm going to blow out my candle. Thank you.
Happy birthday. Congratulations again. And thank you so much. I'm so honored to be able to interview and get to know you just a little bit more.
Thank you. Jonathan, hang on for a minute. I'm going to hang on while I close out.
Sure.
I want to thank you for making the time. I say this over and over again. There are just some things in life we can't get back in time as one of them. So, Jonathan, I appreciate you for making the time and for really being a friend. You know, I mean, granted, I know I was stalking you to kind of meet you, but now that I've met you, I love you. And I really am appreciative that you're in my life. So I thank you for that. I thank you all for coming back every week. I just cannot tell you how much it means to me. And I look forward tonight to getting off and just going through and looking at all the messages. And so I just thank you all. And part of my wish, and we can't tell you wish, but you guys were in my wish. So I will see you next week. And thank you for making this a really special birthday.
Bye, Jackie. Thanks again.
Hang on, Jonathan. Hang on.
Oh, okay.
Thank you all.